Game sense is the hardest aspect to really improve on, and that's because most people play Valorant on autopilot. Let me explain. What I mean by playing on autopilot is playing without really using your brain much at all. How many times do you get in game and take whatever position is available, buy any gun you have the money for, die and just move on? I bet most people playing are guilty of doing this at least sometimes. I'm not saying you can never play without thinking about every single thing you do, but the reality is, if you want to improve your game sense and become a smarter player, you need to start thinking like one. Every time you die, I want you to ask yourself, why did that happen? In the beginning of doing this, I bet you that a lot of reasons will pop up in your head, such as pushing where it wasn't needed, not clearing a corner, or anything else is really easy to fix. If you can't come up with an answer, then I'd suggest you to record your own games and rewatch them later. Write down some notes on patterns you find yourself doing and occasions you died so you can learn from your mistakes. This is by far the easiest and best way to become a smarter player, because you'll know exactly what to improve on. Lost an aim duel? Try sitting in aim labs for 10 minutes longer or doing an extra deathmatch before playing. Find yourself dying too early in rounds? Play more passive. Most reasons why you died are fairly easy to fix and only really requires a bit of self-awareness and practice. Another thing that's really important for you to do, especially if you're not playing in a team, which I know most players aren't, is to start doing the same things over and over again. I don't want you switching agents, switching positions, but instead pick one agent, pick one position, and try to really master those two. For example, let's say you always play mid on Ascent, then keep playing mid. If someone says that they want to play mid, then of course you shouldn't argue with them and start a fight, but just tell them that you want to play mid and try to convince them to let you, because the more you play the same agents and positions, you'll learn how to react in every scenario. This will make you a lot smarter and teach you how to deal with everything you encounter. There's a reason pro teams practice their tactics in scrims. It's because they want to learn how their strats work against other players, other teams, and what they do. This is to find the things that will really work against the majority of people, so try to do the same things in your solo games. The real reason most players won't get smarter and improve their game sense to the same degree as they wish is because they overload on information. Watching tip videos and pro players is great and all, but there's only so much information your brain can take in at one time. It's very easy for you to forget things if you try to remember too much, so my advice is to learn something and then instantly take action. You know what? Open up Notepad right now and write down the things I'm saying so you don't forget. Same thing goes after watching a pro game and seeing a cool lineup you want to use. Go into a custom game right away and do the thing that you just learned. Remembering stuff is way easier once you've already actually done the thing yourself. This is a crucial step that many people forget, and it can easily leave you stuck feeling like you aren't improving, and starting to either do the things that you're hearing instantly or writing them down will most likely solve it for you. Stop blaming things but yourself. No matter how much you blame your teammates, smurfs, hackers, or whatever it may be, that's never gonna fix the real problem, which is you. You're only able to fix yourself, so blaming other things will only make it take longer until you figure out what's actually making you play bad. There's a lot of disadvantages to blaming other things. One of them is tilt. I find it way easier to start tilting once you convince yourself that your team sucks and that you should be winning if you just have better teammates. On top of that, there's the risk of ruining the team spirit if you start getting angry at your team. These things never lead anywhere good, and they're only a distraction when you're trying to get better. Properly learn the economy system and how to spend your credits wisely. This is really important, as you making a bad decision when it comes to buying might lose your round and then the round after, and it can very quickly spiral out of control. Something that really annoys me is bonus rounds. Not bonus rounds themselves necessarily, but the way that people use them and think they should be used. Bonus rounds are supposed to be there for when you have weapons left over from a previous round that aren't rifles, but they're still usable, so you want to keep them for this round and potentially win it, and if you don't win it, you still have money left over to buy rifles to the next one. That is a smart idea, but the way that people use them is that they simply avoid buying because they don't have money for rifles. That is not a bonus round, that's a save round. And save rounds are used for when you have lost your previous round and only have money for pistols. Something that separates high and low ranked players is their ability to maximize their chances to win, which is really important, especially when buying. From now on, I want you to think twice when buying and ask yourself, does this give me the biggest advantage I can get? A good example of this is saving after you won a round. If you have no guns saved and no money to buy rifles, that might encourage a lot of people to save the money they got in order to buy the next one. Situations like this is when you need to start thinking, what's most beneficial for you? And in this case, it's buying what you can, because the enemies will the majority of the time save, so you buying will in most cases give you a pretty free round. The next round you'll have your small guns left over and the enemies got rifles, so you still have an okay chance of winning the round if you played smart. And if you win that round too, then you've totally ruined the enemy's economy and you're probably gonna win the next couple of rounds as well. Now let's take the other route of saving after winning that round. You both have pistols, so your chance of winning is 50-50, and in the next round it's also 50-50 as you both have guns. Your chance of winning is obviously higher in the first example. This is something you learn over time, but just implementing that simple thought process of what gives me the biggest advantage will help you a lot. Understand the importance of map control. Map control is arguably the most important thing to get down if you want to succeed in an attack. Running what is called a default is probably the most well-known and used strategy in high ranks and pro play. This is because it opens up so many possibilities for the attacking side. A default is simply going in 1 or 2 people in every area of the map, trying to secure those areas for the attacking team. This is usually just done by clearing angles angles and slowly taking control of the areas of the map that you can. What this does is that it gives you a ton of information. For example, what abilities the enemies used and where they're positioned, which can be crucial in knowing what side to hit. Defaults are also very good at getting entry frags. If you don't make any noise, then you're withholding a ton of information for the enemy team, which will in a lot of cases make them curious and end up in a defender going a bit too aggressive and then opening up a site for attackers. Defaults are basically the go-to strat when you don't have a plan in mind, as it allows you to make one up with the information and or entry frags that you require from your defaults. About maps, you should also take your time to learn all the callouts and tricks on each map, as this will give you a huge advantage in any game you're in. Knowing exactly what the common spots are called on each map can be really helpful to communicate in the most effective way possible. And tricks such as skill jumps, lineups and more might not seem like they're a huge deal, but trust me, they can be the difference between winning and losing a round. I also just find it fun knowing a lot of things on each map, as this can give your gameplay experience more variety since you aren't doing the exact same things every round. An easy way to learn both of these things is custom games. Jump into one and start trying out new things on each map, whether that's positions, lineups or strats. If you aren't already familiar with the most common callouts, I'd also suggest you to start looking at the map and memorizing them. Try to master rotations. Rotating is very tricky. Even the best players get it wrong all the time, but there are some simple cues that you should learn if you want to improve your rotations quickly. These are, is the spike dropped? If it is, that means that in most cases you're clear to rotate right away. But do be aware that the enemies might still try and take over the site that you're leaving, and from there either flank you or take the control over it and then go there with a spike. So what I usually do is to go further back so I can rotate faster, but I'm still watching that site. However, if your team has full control over the spike, meaning that you've secured the entire area around it, then I would just rotate and hold behind from there if you feel like it's needed. Another simple cue is how many enemies you're spotting. If you for example pushed an entire area of the site and you found no enemies there, then in most cases it's clear to rotate at least one person to the other site, even if your teammates haven't seen someone there yet. If they however have, then make them confirm how many there are there before you rotate. A common mistake that loses a lot of rounds is over rotating. Just because there's one smoke or some steps on a bomb site doesn't mean that enemies are going there, so be careful and always try to get all the information you can before you make the decision to rotate. Moving on to post plans, which is an important part of the game that many people neglect. I have a video on this topic, but I'll cover it quickly here. One thing a lot of people don't do is abusing the map control that you have. Bind is a prime example of this. Having elbow or lamp control is incredibly important for both sides when in a post plant. This is because it easily allows pressure from multiple directions. If you're retaking the A side from truck and lamps at the same time, how would someone on site handle that? The answer is, they probably can't. That's why it's crucial for you not to let go of any map control unless you really have to. You also gotta manage your time efficiently. As a defender, you simply don't have the luxury of waiting around in a post plant. If you're super quick to a site, then you probably have some time to spare, but it isn't a lot, so be quick, but not too quick. Try to communicate with your team, and most importantly, go together and use your abilities wisely. Check out this playlist for more guides on how to improve. I hope you found some of this information helpful.